Thank you, members. I'd like to welcome the Mayor's Chaplain, the Reverend Helena Del Pino, who will be saying prayers for us.
Good evening, everyone. A very happy new year to you all. May it be full of blessings for you personally and for our city. Thank you for your service to the people of this place. Let's take a few more moments of stillness to leave aside all our other concerns and to focus our hearts and minds on tonight's meeting and all the possibilities it contains to enable this city and its villagers to flourish. Let us pray. Gracious God, we give thanks for our city, its surrounding villages, and the natural landscape in which we are set. We pray that this council meeting will build up the life of this place and bring peace and harmony to our people. Help us to remember the power of words to bring peace or to destroy and bring conflict. We offer our thoughts and prayers for those places in the world where conflict, war, and division are a daily reality, and for those people and landscapes affected still by previous conflict. May those in elected and appointed office work always for the common good and not for personal success, power, or gain. May all gathered here tonight build hope for the future and act in love for this beautiful place whose flourishing we are entrusted with. Amen.
Thank you. If you'd all like to be seated. I would like to welcome all councillors and officers, all those in the public gallery, all those who are watching on live stream, and also Rachel Edwards, our Head of Constitutional. I'll hand over to Colin Sweeney to go through some housekeeping points.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. To all present, please ensure that all mobile phones are set to silent. In the event of an evacuation, please exit through the doors on both sides of the chamber, following council staff to the assembly point. As per normal rules, if you wish to speak, please ensure that you raise your hand and you will be invited to address the meeting. The Mayor has confirmed that he is happy for members to stand or remain seated when addressing the chamber. All votes will be taken via the electronic voting system. If a recorded vote is requested, this will be taken in the normal way. There is a point of document. If you wish to raise a point, please raise the pink document and address the Mayor accordingly, stating which point you are raising. Finally, I would remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so please make sure that when you speak, you are using your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And we now go to agenda item 1. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, there are apologies. There are apologies from councillors Lane, Seeger, Stevenson, Trust, Tyler, Fenner and Alison Jones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we now go to agenda item number 2. Are there any declarations of interest from members or from officers which are not already recorded separately on the individual register of interest? Do we have any declarations? I'm not seeing any. Okay, thank you. Turn over the page then. So we now move to agenda item 3. I would like to move that the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 6th of December 2023, do I have a seconder for that? I have a seconder from the leader. If there is no further objection, I'll take the minutes as being agreed. That's agreed then. Thank you. So, agenda item 4, I move to the Mayor's announcements. A full written report on the activities of the Mayor, £7. The event that actually follows that is a Mayor's Currying Night, which is organised by former councillor Ansar Ali, which is being held at the Gurkha Durbar on Tuesday, the 27th of February. And on Friday, the 2nd of February, we have the first of our Meet the Mayor sort of open days, which are held on the first Friday of the month at the Town Hall between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. All people in Peterborough are welcome to attend, and so we hope you will encourage your constituents to come. I'd also like to announce that tomorrow is the Holocaust Memorial Day, and there will be there's going to be a civic procession from here. I think it's at 11:40, and then there is a service a service at St John's Church. At the conclusion of this meeting, we've organised some light refreshments in the Mayor's parlour, to which everybody is welcome. And we actually request that you make a small donation to cover the costs. So that concludes my Mayor's announcements. I'd now like to hand over to Councillor Shabina Kayam, who's the Chair of the Constitution and Ethics Committee, who will announce this year's Civic Awards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have great pleasure in announcing the recipients of this year's Civic Awards. At the Constitution and Ethics Committee on the 14th of December, it was agreed unanimously to award the following nominees a Civic Award in the following categories. Under the category of the Community Involvement Award, we have the following recipients: Amit Mehta, Andrew Petrie, Perit Seta, Seti Long, Chris and Vicky Baker, David Poulton, Emma Bothamley, Fezani Medina Mosque, Gemma Douglas, Laura Vassell, Lewis Vernham, Malcolm Hopkins, Malikia Brewster, Margaret and Malcolm Faulkner, Michelle and Stephen Chapman, Muiz Natu, Mohammed Jangir, Mohammed Ayub Chowdhury, Mohammed Kamran Arif, the PE4 Wombles, Pip Parker, Sally Hullock, Steve Crouch, Steve Williamson, Susan Broccoli, Yasmin Ilahi. Under the category of the Commitment to the Environment Award, we have Cliff and Julie Stanton and Mark Fishpool. Under the category of the Contribution to Art and Culture, we have Peterborough Voices. Under the category of the Sport Award, we have Eglay Norvilaite, George Sykes and Keith Streeter. Ikra Academy Girls Football Team, Will Palmer. Under the category of the Business Award, we have Gemma Wright, Gold Star Cabs, Kez Hayes Palmer. Under the category of the Young Person Award, the recipients are Children in Care Council, Eva Woods, Harry Cowley and Oliver Walker, and Peterborough Young Inspectors. Under the category of the Lifetime Achievement, we have the recipient named Anne Sturgess. All recipients will be invited to receive their awards at the presentation evening, which will be organised by the Mayor's Office in due course. And I'm sure that all members will join me in congratulating the recipients. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kayam. Now move to agenda item 5, which is announcements from the leader. Councillor Farouk, I understand you have some announcements that you would like to put forward this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. January the 1st feels like a long time ago, but I would like to start by wishing everyone in the chamber, in the gallery, and those watching online a happy new year. It has been a very busy start to the year with lots of positive news and updates being announced for our city. Perhaps the most exciting out of all was the launch of our investment prospectus, which I take everybody got him on their desk and I ask everybody to have a good read of him. It is great. The prospectus sets out our exciting vision for delivering growth and regeneration in Peterborough and describes multiple investment opportunities available to drive forward a new growth vision for the city, designed to benefit everyone. Peterborough is on the cusp of a regeneration revolution, and this prospectus sets out our vision as a city of outstanding opportunity. One of the sites mentioned in this prospectus is the Station Quarter redevelopment. This key project has secured 48 million of levelling up funding from government to accelerate the creation of new, iconic, double-sided station along the East Coast Main Line. I'm delighted that we have now submitted our outlined business case to government, marking a significant milestone in the project's progress. Subject to feedback and approval, our full business case will be submitted later on this year. Another project mentioned in our new prospectus is our award-winning university. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the topping out ceremony for Phase 3. A new living lab, the new science facility, will enable students to gain qualifications in emerging new science technologies and sectors that cutting-edge companies are looking to grow. This, in turn, will promote growth in the economy and create more high-paying jobs, making our city an even better place to live and work and play. Our new university, ARU Peterborough, has gone from strength to strength since opening in 2022, and the Living Lab will broaden the facilities, curriculum, as well as host events, immersive displays, talks, and evening classes. Mr. Mayor, at the heart of the Council's net zero strategy lies the implementation of an ambitious and comprehensive energy plan spanning heat, electricity, transport, and energy efficiency improvements. As part of this, we are leading an innovative partnership to develop delivery plans for these net zero actions to maximize adoption across the city. This group is known as the Peterborough Accelerated Net Zero Partnership. Mr. Mayor, this city has a good track record of attracting investment, and I'm pleased to say that 2.75 million has been awarded to the partnership. This money will be used to further develop net zero projects, tying in with our key goal to reduce carbon emissions across Peterborough. In recent weeks, we have agreed with Serco that our contract with them to provide a number of services on our behalf will be ending in April. The Council has been reviewing all of its contracts and partnerships over the past 2 years to ensure the arrangements continue to meet its needs and are providing best value for our residents. This was a key part of our improvement plan. I would like to thank Serco for the services they have provided for the Council and residents in the past 13 years. We very much look forward to welcoming the staff back home into the Council and making sure there's a minimum impact on everybody. One of the functions that Serco currently provides is our customer services, and I'm pleased to inform you all that formal notification has been received that the team has retained its customer service excellence accreditation for the 15th year running, a great result for our customer services. Tomorrow, people of the city are invited to remember the suffering and sacrifice of millions of people killed in genocides across the world, including the Holocaust and the commemoration service to mark Holocaust Memorial Day. Mr. Mayor, the event will take place, as you announced earlier, at St. John's Baptist Church at noon, with our Mayor leading a civic procession from the Town Hall to Cathedral Square. Please attend if you can. And finally, earlier this month, I was lucky enough to visit the Mars War and Peace exhibition at Peterborough Cathedral, and would urge everyone to see it while it's there. The fascinating exhibition runs until 29th of January, giving visitors a chance to consider the history of human conflict around the world. It really is a spectacular, thought-provoking. I would like to also say a couple of other things. It was great to hear last week that Peterborough was voted commuter town of United Kingdom, which was a great news. Mr. Mayor, on the last couple of days, on a somber note, M&S announced proposals to close City Centre branch, which we will support and work with all stakeholders, including staff and supporting the staff.
Thank you. Could you, is that the conclusion of it? Or?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Right, now, group leaders, you've each got up to 2 minutes to make a response to that. So, first of all, I call on Councillor Wayne Fitzgerald, leader of the Conservative group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Always a pleasure to be back in your company at these meetings. So I'll start with, in fact, I can't believe, actually, sometimes when I come here, I think somebody's written and read out my speech, because it sounds exactly the same as I've been saying for about the last 2 years. So let's get this clear, folks. This regeneration scheme and plan is actually the work of the Conservatives. So when you talk about our, you've got to be joking. How can you sit there with a straight face and say that? Because everything in your report is nothing to do with you.
Councillor Fitzgerald, could you address your remarks through the chair?
Sorry, Chair. I was remarking directly back to his comments, not to the council leader. So it's laughable when you talk about our. It's actually ours, the Conservative group that has made all these progress on all the growth and regeneration. And in scrutiny the other night, it was laughable when Peter Hiller said he'd get something done with North Westgate. Well, in the 10 years or more he was the cabinet member, he didn't do anything then, so why should I expect he'll do anything now? But let's wait and see. We'll wait and see, won't we? So the university, again, a Conservative-led initiative from the very beginning, and it's great to see it doing so well. I was at the groundbreaking. You may have been at the rooftop, but I don't think you'll be able to see it open. So if you were a pop group, actually, you might be Farouk and the Sycophants, all 7 of you running the council, because none of you seem to be able to lead by yourselves. Look, can I also say, Councillor Harper made a big deal a few weeks ago, and I know the leader said something about this. We're overrun with beggars. We are overrun with beggars in the city centre. And now I hear we're abandoning all the work on St Peter's Arcade, which the Cabinet is reportedly said to have done. What I would say to colleagues at the back, take the words of the Mayor's chaplain when she started. Do not do this for personal power, success or gain. And I would say to Councillor Farouk and his team, you ought to take notice of that and live by that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. Obviously very popular remarks. I'd like to now call upon Councillor Jones, leader of the Labour group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Somewhat less contentious. The City Prospectus, I'm fine. The City Prospectus, if you haven't read the book yet, watch the movie. It's all over social media. Some dodgy characters, or is that just the acting? Just aside, these are exciting times for our city, and on behalf of the Labour group, it's both an honour and a pleasure to be an integral part of the journey we are embarked on. As a new kid on the block, I've only been here for a quarter of a century. I'm both thrilled and delighted to see the progress Peterborough has made in terms of the university. As award-winning higher education asset in the heart of our city, that was a headline that was a long way from being written when I arrived. As a former member of Greenpeace long before Rainbow Warrior was sunk, yes, I'm that old, I never tire of the efforts individually and collectively to reduce waste, carbon emissions or increase recycle and inward investment to support the city's efforts, and they will always be appreciated. Welcome back and welcome home to the soon-to-be to the ex-Serco team and the functions they perform. And if it's still time to wish everyone a Happy New Year on behalf of the Labour group, we hope you have one. In any event, a busy and for some, an exciting year lies ahead. Finally, many congratulations to all the Civic Award winners announced tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Now call upon Councillor Chris Harper, leader of the Peterborough First group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little bit more prepared tonight, so I don't have to say what he said. But It was great to hear from our leader all what's been going on in our city, and I won't bother responding to the leader of the Conservative group. Okay, perhaps one of the most exciting things is this investment prospectus. And if you haven't, as Councillor Farouk has said, and the leader has said, if you haven't already seen the booklet, please do go through it. And if you can't see it there, and the members of the public, please go online and have a read through it. It's extremely exciting. The Station Quarter redevelopment, really exciting, and I'd like to thank everybody that's been involved, whatever party, cross-party, officers, etc., for the excellent news that we have now submitted the outline business case to government. And I look forward to this progressing further. More excellent news is our award-winning university and the topping out ceremony for Phase 3, the new Living Lab. The innovative partnership is promising news for our city, and we look forward to hearing their recommendations. Regarding Serco, we very much look forward to welcoming the ex-Serco staff to the council and hope, as the leader has said, the impact will be minimal and they settle in very quickly. Tomorrow, of course, to remind everybody, it is Holocaust Memorial Day, so if you can join in any of the particular remembrance parades at churches, etc., please do so. And finally, the Civic Award winners, congratulations to all those nominated and those that won. Well done. You will certainly bring pride to our city. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harper. Now call upon Councillor Hogg, leader of the Liberal Democrat group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm glad to see that the new administration is supporting new initiatives such as the Station Quarter development and the university. Great examples of securing projects via the combined authority. In fact, just today, I was at a briefing with other council group leaders and the combined authority mayor to hear about the impressive plans for the cathedral precinct and how it could change to enhance the offering to our residents and provide a tourist destination in the heart of our city. Great news regarding the Serco work coming in-house. I visited the call centre this week, and staff there are very keen to return to being council staff and have some great ideas about how they can further enhance the service that they provide to our residents. Retaining this Excellence Award for the 15th time bears witness as to what a hard-working team we have in our call centre. And I think certainly a bit of kudos to Cecilia Booth for being able to negotiate that deal with Serco. I can't believe it was easy in any stretch of the imagination. So, you know, very well done there. And I've left a bit of space because I thought Alt Leader would come up with some comments. Here we go again. The Conservatives taking the credit for our hard-working officers who have laboured through a lot of this work and essentially poo-pooing, you know, what is happening with our city. Can we just stop? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hogg. I now call upon Councillor Nicola Day, who's the leader of the Green Party group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We as Greens are interested in the investment prospectus and the growth and much needed regeneration that it will bring. However, we as Greens want to ensure that it is sustainable growth and that we align to our net zero targets and strategies with this growth. We are pleased to see that the Station Quarter redevelopment project has been submitted, and we hope that the feedback from the public consultation events will be carefully taken into consideration. It is great that you have noted Peterborough Accelerated Net Zero Partnerships and that £2.75 million has been awarded to the partnership to develop projects that will meet our net zero targets and reduce carbon. I remember back to July 2019 at my first full council meeting when we declared a climate emergency, and I remember wondering where that would take us. Well, it has helped develop a growing climate change team, a scrutiny committee, a head of service, one of the first councils to produce a local area energy plan. In fact, at a combined authority meeting this week, other local authorities will be asking for our assistance with their own local area energy plans. And now there's a £2.75 million project. It's fair to say that we are progressing well and we look forward towards more projects to come. We also stand with everyone in remembering the suffering and sacrifice of millions of people killed in genocides and the Holocaust, and we extend our particular thoughts to those caught in genocides today. And can we just wish from the Green Group a Happy New Year to all members and the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to commend all group leaders for keeping within their time. We now move to agenda item 6, questions with notice submitted by members of the public. There have been 2 questions put forward this evening, and I'd like to call upon Mr. Ed Murphy, who is a distinguished former councillor. I'd like to welcome him back to the council chamber to put his first question. Mr. Murphy, would you like to ask your question in relation to the finance of the building at Fletton Quays?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read the question out for the benefit of people that haven't had a written copy. It's about the hotel. In 2017, that's 7 years ago, Council agreed a loan to finance the building of the Fletton Quay Hotel. How much in total has it cost the Council to facilitate and borrow to finance the 14.7 million lent? And were the requirements of the council, City Council's fair tax declaration mark complied with at all stages?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, and a warm welcome back to the chamber, and it is warm in here as well. Peterborough City Council agreed a 15 million loan, as you know, with Fletton Quays Limited for regeneration purposes, and the original loan agreement was with Norlin Hotels Holdings Limited and was agreed at Cabinet back on the 25th of September 2017. The loan was transferred to Propertier Limited, who took over Fletton Quays Hotel on the 1st of May 2020, after the original administrator went into after the original contractor went into administration. The loan has been drawn down in stages, and a quantity surveyor has been employed to ensure the value of the work justifies the loan drawdown. The amount drawn down on the loan is 14.7 million, and the interest due on the loan has been accrued and is payable when the principal is repaid. The amount of interest is commercially confidential, but for reassurance, the council is the preferred creditor. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Mr. Murphy, you now have 1 minute to put a supplementary.
I didn't hear the last bit of the last sentence, sorry.
I'd like to repeat that.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Murphy, I will repeat it. So the amount of interest is commercially confidential. For reassurance, the council is the preferred creditor.
Hey, Mr. Murphy, you've got up to 1 minute.
Thank you very much for your response. I looked this week at the Public Works Board, and it's 5% they're charging at the moment on 14.7 million. That's £735,000 per annum. That's just for 1 year. We have to pay on the money we've borrowed every year, maybe going back 7. So it's cost quite a lot. And then at joint scrutiny, I heard the council are thinking of maybe borrowing, it's a round figure, maybe made up 10 million to try and finish the hotel. I know there's a question later on from Councillor Hogg. Do we actually know how much this is going to cost? Do we know when it's going to be completed? And are we actually maybe going to be spending more money on something that's costing us a fortune already? And just if people look on the website, you'll see the fair tax pledge, but only one box has been ticked. Can you check for me and let me know whether there was any non-compliance with the council's own fair tax policy? Maybe had we complied, we wouldn't have made this big financial mistake.
Thank you. Councillor Howard, you'd like to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Murphy. And, you know, I can't answer for yesterday. I can only tell you where we are today. And I think it's in the public's interest, it's in the council's interest that we open the hotel as a Hilton hotel as soon as we possibly can. And that's the answer I can give you at this stage. There was a very positive meeting with the Hilton yesterday, so they still support the hotel, which is really important. And I think for the you know, the best outcome for the city is to finish the job that was started and open it as a Hilton hotel. And the only reassurance I can give you is that that's what we are working on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, would you now like to ask your second question, which relates to the £50 million loan that the council agreed?
Thank you. I think I may be getting a written one on the fair tax bit. So the next question is, Did council members or officers seek an opinion from or discuss with the external review panel, that's the people you're paying to help you, the £50 million loan it agreed to take out earlier this financial year? And since then, how much have the administration saved following the change of leadership from the reduction in expenditure on cabinet members and advisors' allowances, and how much would this be over the medium-term financial plan?
Thank you. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to that, please?
Yes, I will, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Murphy. The business case for the acquisition of San Martin House was reviewed by individual Independent Improvement Panel members and was also discussed with the whole panel before the actual deal was made. Coming on to your other question, in the current financial year, there is a circa £40,000 reduction in the cost of special responsibility allowances as a result of the Peterborough First administration coming in. This is being captured with the Council's budgetary control report, supporting the Council's overall financial position. No changes have been made in the budget for future years, however, as these roles and associated costs can change annually, depending on the administration and political situation at the time, obviously.
Thank you very much. Mr Murphy, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you. And so in 6 months, you've saved £40,000. I'm just wondering, how's it going? What other savings have you been able to identify? The interest on 50 million is colossal, though. And what are you having to cut to pay for that? And how's it been going?
Councillor Howard.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Murphy. How's it going? Very interesting, but we're getting there. But to answer your question about the 50 million, the case for the acquisition was based on the fact that overall, over the entire term, we'd be saving money against the rent expenditure that would have gone out over that same period of time. So it's a savings-led decision that led to the purchase of it, just to assure you. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes questions from members of the public. We now move to agenda item 7, which is petitions. Those presenting petitions this evening will have up to 1 minute to outline their request. Are there any petitions from members of the public? I'm not seeing any. Are there any petitions from councillors? I'm looking, but I can't see any petitions. Okay. Right. So we now move to agenda item 8, which is questions on notice from councillors to members of the Cabinet. There have been 14 questions submitted by members. As normal, to save time, we're going to take the questions as read. And I just urge, because we do have 14 questions, we've got half an hour. I want to try and get as many questions in as possible, so try and keep the questions and answers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Allen for the question. Councillor Allen, I share your regret that the pride, once so strong in the residents of our country, is lacking by some, especially those with a carefree attitude to littering and fly tipping. It is abhorrent, and those responsible should be ashamed of themselves, and indeed, as you reference, held to account and prosecution. The Council completes 2 verge cuts, litter picks and sweeps of the high-speed road network each year. I fully accept that there has been issues with the cleansing of the National Highways network, but like fly tipping and littering, these aren't issues that have manifested themselves over the last 3 months. You will note, as part of our budget proposals this year, an investment into a planned cleansing regime for highways going forward. Likewise, I can confirm that I have held tripartite meetings with representatives of National Highways, Aragon and Milestone to look to implement a collaborative and conjoined approach to cleaning, maintaining and litter picking these arterial roads. Barriers such as operatives who don't and currently won't work at times commensurate to a combined approach are being worked through. As to whether we face an uphill battle, as these issues have been allowed to spiral over many years through the direction of previous administrations. Where signage is put in place by a utility company and they fail to remove this, we can and do administer fines. We also remind our contractors to ensure all signage is removed following completion of any of our own schemes. I have tasked Millstone through James Collingridge to provide me with a data table of the signage implemented for each scheme, confirmation that the same quantity is being returned and within what time frame. My intention is that said signage be removed within 48 hours of any scheme completion. I would like to echo the praise you suggest for the Peterborough Litter Wombles and the other litter picking groups and volunteers who do an amazing job supporting our city. I'm a regular participant in litter picks where appropriate to do so, and I have met with both Mark Fishpool and Harry Machin to discuss issues and derive plans going forward. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my thanks to them, but also remind people that we do not advocate
Could you draw your remarks to a close?
Yes, accessing the city's high-speed road network on foot without suitable traffic management in place. I, like you, Councillor Allen, would much prefer to see the sterling efforts of the Peterborough Litter Wombles and other littering picking groups focused on areas around streets, parks, open spaces and pathways where such inherent dangers don't exist.
Right, I'm going to have to stop with that because I do need to be strict on time. Thank you. Councillor Allen, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do indeed, and I'd like to thank Councillor Elsey for his response to my first question. We're on the same page, Councillor Elsey, and I think that across this chamber there is a need and a thought that we need to do better with regard to litter picking. But my question is, it's widely reported in the national press and broadcast media that national highways are in dereliction of their duties and responsibilities with regard to roadside clearance of litter and fly tipping. Do we have to put up with this neglect? Are we, as a local authority, not able to put in place contractual agreements with national highways to ensure the roads, walkways and bridges in our area for which they hold responsibility are better maintained and cleared, and establish an agreed procedure for the regularity of the work to be undertaken? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Elsey would like to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The short answer is no. Can I suggest that, as he's here, you speak to your learned friend to raise it in the House of Commons that such an item is extremely difficult, and that, with the greatest of respect, National Highways do and see as they please. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2 from Councillor Nicola Day. Councillor Hiller, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Day in relation to swimming provision in Peterborough?
Yes, I would, Mr Mayor, and I thank Councillor Day for the question. Whilst it could be argued that regular maintenance of the regional pool wasn't a priority for the previous Conservative administration, this most likely wouldn't have prevented its current state of closure. Members will be aware this is due to the potential structural weakness of the type of concrete used many years ago during its construction. This problem here has been exacerbated by the moisture and heat generated by the pool, which creates a low-level sauna-type atmosphere within the building. Whatever the political purpose over recent years, it's a fact that some ancillary maintenance has actually happened on areas of the regional pool to facilitate its use. This has included a number of upgrades to the heating system and asbestos removal. Where we are with regard to the historic ring-fenced capital funding for a replacement pool, Councillor Day, I'm told recent election propaganda produced by the Conservative group promised voters they would invest £37 million into a new pool. It didn't materialise, obviously, but I can tell you the funding element of any future provision of a pool is high on the agenda of my colleague, our Deputy Leader, Councillor Howard. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicola Day, do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hiller, for your response. Just wondering, as we progress with these plans and potential funding for a new pool, how will you ensure that user groups, particularly those that use the deep aqua sessions, are catered for and can take part in the consultation that may well take place? Thank you.
Councillor Hiller.
Yes, thank you for the follow-up question, Councillor Day, and I think that's a very valid concern. Obviously, we're a fair way to go before detailed pool designs are created for appraisal, but I can reassure you the needs of all groups who previously used the regional pool will be duly considered in the final designs of a new facility. Thank you, Councillor Day. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We now move to question 3 from Councillor Chris Wiggin. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Wiggin in relation to disposal of the former Woolworths building?
Thank you, and through you, Mr Mayor. The agreement to proceed with the disposal of the former Woolworths building was agreed in July 2023. The building was identified as surplus, and the Towns Fund grant funding associated with it needs to be recovered and redistributed across the programme. In relation to the disposal of the building, it should be noted that there is a requirement for the Council to achieve best value under Section 123 of the Local Government Act 1972. A Red Book valuation will be undertaken by an independent valuer prior to the completion of the sale. The proposed purchaser will be required to share full details of their development proposal. The negotiation with third parties for the disposal, I'm glad to say, is live, and it is anticipated that the building costs will be recovered with no loss to the Council nor the grant funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wiggin, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I thank Councillor Howard for his answer and for the reassurances he has given. Could he also outline the ongoing plans for the Vines project at the Central Library site, and if we have an expectation of when this will be completed? Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Councillor Wiggin. There is an expectation for the proposals to be finished, or proposition to be finished by March 2026, but the new Vine proposals are really exciting and will be split across the Central Library and the Goods Shed, with 2 propositions for the city. And if you haven't seen the Talking About Regeneration video clip done yet by our officers, it gives a really good tour of some of the projects that are on the go. And thank you for the question.
Thank you. Councillor Hiller, moving to question 4 from Councillor D. Jones. Councillor Hiller, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Jones in relation to future swimming provision in Peterborough?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Jones, for your question. It's an issue which is of concern to many residents of our city, and one which our Peterborough First administration is taking very seriously. We're determined to find a way forward which is sensible, economically viable, and provides for a proper facility for our residents for many, many years to come, but in an open, transparent, and accountable way. As was outlined at the scrutiny meeting here on Monday evening, officers are currently developing a detailed business case that will set out options for the regional pool site, together with proposals for swimming provision in the city. It's our intention to present a report to Cabinet in March seeking agreement on future arrangements. This will, of course, be an expedient and refreshingly transparent public process at the relevant time, and will involve consultation with all members, affected parties, and, as I previously mentioned to Councillor Day's question, user groups, of course. What won't be included, Mr Mayor, is any outside influence for political gain, nor any benefit to inappropriate private interest. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Jones.
Councillor Jones, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reply's largely been covered in Councillor Day's, in the reply to Councillor Day's supplementary question. Happy to move on. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We now move to question 5 from Councillor Hogg. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Hogg in relation to the money loaned and interest paid in respect to the Hilton's Gardens Hotel?
Thank you, and through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hogg, for the question. The Council has lent £14.7 million to Fletton Quays Hotel Limited, which was developing the Peterborough Hilton Hotel. Interest was due at a commercial rate, payable at the end. Fletton Quays Hotel Limited was recently put into administration, as you know. The part-built Peterborough Hilton Hotel was recently valued at £6.5 million by the developer that was put into administration. This is the value the developer put on an asset for sale under duress. The Council would only make a loss if it chose to sell now at this point. However, £6.5 million is not the value that Peterborough City Council puts on the hotel, due to its financial value when the hotel is finished and the regeneration benefits for residents and businesses. We are waiting for professional advice on the value of the hotel, which is expected in February, and then the Council will decide its strategy for the hotel after that. One of the options the Council is considering is developing the hotel itself. The Council has received valuations from a professional quantity surveyor for the value of work completed on the hotel before each loan drawdown, and it is due to this professional advice that the Council believes its financial investment is secure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Hogg, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Mr Mayor. I thank Councillor Howard for his answer. Would in fact agree with me that once again we have seen the Conservative-led get-rich-quick scheme fall on its face, and that Council is in real danger of losing hard-working residents' money, which could have been better spent on delivering much-needed services, and that this administration will not be participating in foolishly gambling our scarce financial resources in this way going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. I think the historical decision and hindsight would, of course, be one thing. However, I can't talk about yesterday. I can only talk about tomorrow and say that the Peterborough First-led administration firmly believes that the best outcome for the residents of this city is to now have a hotel open as soon as possible with the Hilton sign on it. And I can assure you that officers met with the Hilton team yesterday who are still very much in favour for it. And I think our role as the current administration is to manage that process and ensure we protect the money that's invested in the hotel by getting it open as efficiently and quickly as we can.
Thank you. Councillor, have we got a problem with the clock? Doesn't seem to be working.
No, the clock is down there. Yeah.
Oh, what's this one here then?
That one is.
Right, okay, can we move on to question number 7? Question number 7 is from Councillor Stevenson. Sorry, I was other issue. Right, question number 6 from Councillor Chris Wiggin. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Wiggin in relation to what plans, if any, the Council has for the gravel car park at the front of the London Road site?
Thank you, and through you, Mr Mayor. You didn't want to hear my voice again, did you? So, despite the London Road gravel car park now being occupied under a lease for the use of the site as a car park, I can confirm that the site will continue to be reviewed for alternative uses or development options. No specific detail on the type of future development has been considered as yet, and any carbon zero requirements will of course be considered at the appropriate time. Councillor Wiggin, I hope that helps. Thank you.
Right, okay, Councillor Chris Wiggin, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm always happy to hear from Councillor Howard as my ward councillor. So I thank him for the answer. Could he also outline what plans exist for the Pleasure Fair car park site currently owned by Meacham Homes?
Councillor Howard, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Councillor Wiggin. It is part of the prospectus, as you'll see in the book. So we are looking at, potential investors and potential offers on that site. And as soon as there is any more information to share, I will gladly come back with an update.
Thank you. We now move to question number 7 from Councillor Julie Stevenson. Councillor Stevenson is absent but has requested that the response be given at the meeting. So Councillor Hiller, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Stevenson in relation to the location of third changing places toilet?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I would, and I thank Councillor Stevenson in her absence for the question, and I hope she's well. I would like to confirm to members that officers are in regular contact with DLUC to guide the development of these new and important facilities for our city. Councillor Stevenson is right that one of these 3 changing places toilets will be located at Ferry Meadows, and we expect that the second facility will be located within the cathedral precincts and confirm that the cathedral folk are actively working with the necessary specialists to deliver this scheme expediently, Mr. Mayor. The final facility will be located within a private yet accessible business within the city centre, and I'd like to reassure members that whilst the initial funding deadline was the end of March, this has now been extended by a further 3 months to enable these facilities, these very important facilities, to happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if Councillor Stevenson is watching, thank you very much for the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Obviously, as Councillor Stevenson's not here, she can't ask a supplementary question. So we now move to question 8 from Councillor Jackie Allen. Councillor Bisbee or Councillor Saqib Farouk, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Jackie Allen in relation to how the Council and its partner agencies can work with public health and the NHS to increase the uptake of the MMR vaccinations?
That will be myself. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Allen for raising this very important issue. As we know, there are increases of measles cases in England, especially in areas such as Birmingham. Peterborough itself does have low MMR vaccination uptake rates, and it is really important for children and young adults who haven't had their vaccine to get one as soon as possible. Even a single dose of MMR vaccine will provide a very high level of protection against clinical measles. In Peterborough, we are working with all settings, including health, early years, schools, universities and workplaces, to highlight the importance of people getting their vaccine. This is building on the work we have done with partners over the last year, including the ICB and Health and Wellbeing Board. We would encourage all councillors to promote the MMR vaccination to their communities and distribute the communications that will be coming out through the council. I would also like to say that it is never too late to catch up. The MMR vaccine is free on the NHS, whatever the age. If anyone has missed one or both doses of the vaccine, they can contact their GP practice to book an appointment. There is also a vaccine outreach clinic being held at Gladstone Child and Family Zone on the afternoon of the 29th of January for those aged 4 to 18. And Hertfordshire Community NHS Trust will be delivering other outreach clinics in Peterborough over the next month. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jackie Allen, do you have a supplementary question?
I guess that just to make sure that the publication of these additional outreach clinics are very firmly put in front of us as councillors and any other agency that can promote those dates, please.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Allen. I completely agree with that. As Councillor Elsie said earlier in a previous question, I think it's a responsibility of all of us as members here to raise awareness and promote these clinics and any programmes as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Now move to question 9 from Councillor Steve Allen. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Allen in relation to reports in the media that many of Peterborough's neighbouring local authorities have made a decision to ban meat and dairy products from council catering arrangements?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Allen, for the question. And to give you some reassurance, Peterborough City Council has not made any decision to make changes to the council catering arrangements and will continue to provide choice for all dietary requirements across both civic and charitable events to the best of its ability. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, have you got a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clear my throat. I do indeed have a response, and I thank Councillor Howard for his response. I'm sort of somewhat reassured, but I'm conscious that there's certain words you don't like to be used in the chamber, and I guess one of those will be coalition. So I'll take that out of my response. And my response is that being conscious that with elections in May, the political pendulum may well swing again, and who knows where it will land. Hopefully allowing electors to select councillors who will stand by the party they list on the ballot paper. With that in mind, can I check whether your response has been agreed with the other parties in the chamber who, in alliance with you, are currently supporting the minority administration with its response? Thank you.
I think the word coalition is perfectly acceptable if you want to use it, but Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question?
Thank you for you, Mr Mayor. I'll be delighted to answer. And Councillor Allen, I've always seen you as a sensible voice and one of the last One Nation Conservatives. And it does sadden me to see you trying to initiate some sort of culture war out of choice of food. No doubt a motion will come forward soon on the same theme. The administration... Very sad to see, but the administration firmly believes in offering food choices. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. We now move to question 10 from Councillor Iqbal. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Iqbal in relation to how much money Empower is bringing into the council currently?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's me again. Let's have So the council invested 23 million into Empower. And on the 11th of November 2021, the company was put into administration, and on the same day, the council purchased the assets for 20.4 million. The asset is treated as land and buildings in the council's financial statements and is depreciated in accordance with the council's agreed policy. The council receives income from the feed-in tariff and deemed export. The amount of income received each year is commercially sensitive and unfortunately cannot be disclosed tonight. However, I can say that the value we place on the panels is based on the feed-in tariff income we receive and is consistent with their value as in the annual accounts. The income rises with RPI each year and the scheme finishes in 2037 to 38. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Councillor Iqbal, do you have a supplementary question?
No, Mr Mayor, I don't have a supplementary question, but thank you very much for a comprehensive response. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to question 11 from Councillor Hogg. Councillor Elsey, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Hogg in relation to how many street lights are currently not working and how many of these have been out of action for more than a year?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you, and thank you, Councillor Hogg, for your question. We currently have 28,200 street lamps across Peterborough, and of these, 193 have live issues, which could include cable faults, faulty lamps, and the need for full column replacements. 54 of these issues have been open for over a year for various reasons. The team are working closely with Milestone to address these faults and designing the larger schemes, such as Borges Boulevard, where we have old private power cables that need mass replacement. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Hogg?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Elsey, for your response. Where streetlights have been damaged as a result of a road traffic accident, I believe the cost of replacement repair can be recovered from the vehicle's car insurance or the Motor Insurers Bureau for uninsured loss. Is the council able to make repair and claim for the cost, or do we have to get the cost approved first before proceeding with the repair?
Councillor Elsey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hogg. The short answer to that is I don't have that information to hand, so I will gladly provide it to you in a written response. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Moving to question 12 from Councillor Coles. Councillor Farouk, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Coles in relation to alleged poor financial decision-making by the former Conservative administration?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cole, for the question. When I took over the leadership, I promised transparent and compassionate politics and a new style of leadership. I wrote an article in local magazine as a local representative. Most of the members are well aware of those bad financial decisions in this chamber, and in fact, many of them are being discussed here today in many of the member questions. Those questions being question 2, question 3, 4, 6, 5, and 10. As a leader and strategist, I am moving on from where we are to where we need to be and how to get there and to deliver best possible outcomes for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coles, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Farouk, for your response. I'm not entirely sure you answered my question, which is I would really have liked to have known the amount of millions that we have I personally have been responsible for. I took over, had to remove £27 million out of the budget and then £20.7 million out of the budget. And the issues that you talk about, well, we've heard about these things you say that we were responsible for. 2017, well, I was a backbench councillor then. Councillor Fitzgerald was deputy leader. It wasn't his responsibility. If you want to know about it, it would have been Councillor Seaton, it would have been Councillor Holditch, our esteemed former leader, and it would have been someone else involved in growth. I think it's Councillor Hiller, who is currently in that post now. So it's unfortunate you have to use this sort of commentary about a group that you were formerly a member of. The fact is, there have been challenges because of COVID. We know that. There's been challenges because of Ukraine and the Russia's attacks. So please, would you answer the question specifically why you had to use these terms of there being millions wasted when that's not the case? Just stop that. We don't need to do that. Let's move on and let's look to the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Farouk would like to respond to that.
We both agree on that what Councillor Cole just said is let's move on and let's look at the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Question 13 from Councillor Thorburn. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Thorburn in relation to the purchase and sale of Peterborough City? I think it means Peterborough United football ground.
Classic waste of money.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, the Council brought the Peterborough United Football Stadium and surrounding land in 2010 for £8.4 million. Over that period of time since, we've sold the land and buildings at London Road, which includes the Western Home Stadium itself, the business centre and surrounding land at a value of £6.1 million, which was in March 2021. The terms of the sale include an element of deferred consideration, but all monies due to date have been received. The London Gravel car park was retained with a suggested value of £0.7 million. And during the period of council ownership, £4.5 million in rent was received from Peterborough United Football Club. In addition, business rates, council tax and Section 106 has been received from the new properties developed. These include carbon neutral and affordable properties which have been developed on the land. Posh adds an estimated £7 million to the city's economy each year through wages, buying goods and services from local companies and its supporters spending money outside of the ground. There has been an economic and social benefit to Peterborough from the decision, as well as greater security to the football club so far. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Councillor Thorburn, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was comprehensive. I don't, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we get on to question 14 from Councillor Stevenson, who's absent, but she's asked for a response to be given. So Councillor Hiller, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Stevenson in relation? I won't read all the. I'm going to allow a response to be given to this question because it is the final question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd be very happy to. It's a very valid question from Councillor Stevenson as a timely reminder, I think, to all of us here that building design should be inclusive and accessible for all user groups, not just, as Councillor Stevenson says, the physically fit. By way of reassurance, I can tell members the Council has engaged a multidisciplinary designer, Arup, some may recognise the name, to develop the proposals for the station quarter. British firm Arup was founded in 1946 and now has 94 offices in 34 countries. They have extensive experience of designing places, spaces and buildings which are fully inclusive and accessible for all, specialising in visible and non-visible disabilities. They were recently involved, Mr. Mayor, in creating 6 of the 10 new central stations on the new Central London Crossrail Elizabethan line and help shape the oversight development for the commercial developer partners. They have experience in rail inclusion, and I can state that embedded within their own policy statements is their commitment, and I quote, to work with clients and collaborators with due consideration that their equality, diversity and inclusivity commitments are consistent with their own. Mr. Mayor, the design work is currently at a very early stage, and it's important to note that what we're seeing now is just the illustrative ideas used to support the business case to confirm funding. More detailed design work will be undertaken over the coming months to include extensive engagement with stakeholders, including disability, access, cycle and frail user groups and the Highway Authority. A planning application for the works in the public highway will be needed, of course, with further open and transparent consultation occurring during the pre-app and statutory review stages. Peterborough City Council welcomes the input and ideas of Peterborough's disability groups in this design process, and I'm confident, Mr Mayor, that their views will be incorporated in the final design proposals. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Stevenson, if indeed she's watching. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to commend all councillors and cabinet members for keeping those responses fairly concise, and we have got all 14 questions in. I didn't initially think that we were going to do that. So we now move to agenda item 8D, which is questions on notice to members of the combined authority. We have had no questions put forward. So we now move to agenda item 9. This item can run for up to 45 minutes, so I'm proposing that we have this item and then we'll have the break that we normally have partway through the meeting. So the item 9 is a petition for debate to urge PCC to keep open the Youth Centre and Library. In terms of the council scheme for dealing with petitions, we have 45 minutes available for this in order for the council to consider the petition. At the end of the 45-minute period, we will proceed immediately to take a vote on any propositions that are before us. So I would like to invite Mr McKean to present the petition. Mr McKean, you have up to 5 minutes to present your petition. And someone's going to provide you with a microphone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr Mayor, before I start, could I request, please, that the documentation does not make clear that I've got a 3 minutes response to the debate?
Oh, okay, I apologise for that, but you have, so yeah.
That is correct. I've got 3 minutes at the end, after the debate.
Can I just get the legal officer just to confirm
that? Yes, that is covered within the petition scheme, which was appended to the report itself. It's covered there.
So I do have 3 minutes at the end?
You do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you've now got up to 5 minutes to present your petition.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors, and for our MP Paul Bristow who's joining me today. This petition has 1,517 signatures that have been verified by council officers on the 9th of January. Within a week of starting, we had 948 verified, hence being here today. It states, we call on the council to not close our youth centre building and use the grants available from the government's 75 million fund for youth clubs and building renovation to upgrade the building in time for the council's reopening of senior youth club by 2025, which is a statutory requirement, and for the continuation of the current junior youth club, Brownies, Rainbows and Girl Guides, and their use of the building along with the library as well. Background information. Our youth club started 61 years ago when the youth centre and library building was gifted to the City Council by the then owners, but with restrictive covenants. The library has a 25-year lease ending the 1st of May 2035. Girl Guides and Brownies started there 50 years ago. Rainbows was 26 years ago and Rangers 5 years ago. The City Council closed down Senior Youth Club 5 years ago. The Junior Youth Club has been running on a voluntary basis for the last 18 years. With new estates comes families. Their children and youth need facilities. Currently, every Friday during school terms, Junior Youth Club has 60 to 70 attending, increasing to 80 at a disco. For the age range of 9 to 12, after 12 years of age, the youth have nowhere to go. Add to this another 80 more for Guides, Brownies, Rainbows and Rangers. An average week, we have 150 users. Manor Farm Community Centre is totally impracticable as a youth centre for the following reasons, which has been suggested as a move. It only has one free evening, Fridays. There are at least 4 separate evenings, including the restart of the Senior Youth Club. 12 to 8, right. It has no secure storage for the groups, very attractive high-value equipment, no outside play area, which has outside for sports and health benefits. The toilets are external to the main rooms, so the safety of children would not be able to be monitored when they go outside of the main hall. The wooden floor would not be able to support the pool table, table tennis, table taps, football table and disco equipment. For the library move, there would also be significant issues, including secure card access, CCTV, cameras, computers, internet lines, and of course book storage and display and reading areas. There has been significant housing growth in Eye over the previous decade. From the census data, Eye village population has increased by 43% in the last 20 years. For the 10 years to 2021 census showed an increase of 1,060 residents to a total of 5,400. This was due to the building of 7 new housing estates, and now yet to be built will be 5 more housing estates which have outline planning permission at the moment, and the plans will start for occupation from October 2025, bringing the total number of residents to approximately 6,100 residents in Eye Village. Government grants and Staff Council statutory duty. On the 27th of September 2023, the government announced an update to the Education Act. Tier 1 local authorities to fulfil their statutory duty to senior youth club provision for the ages 13 to 19 and those with learning difficulties or disabilities aged 20 to 24. As announced in February 22, the senior youth provision is to be by 2025. That takes 3 years to be able to do it. We have 11 months to get it done for Eye and of course the rest of Peterborough. Also announced in February 22, the government announced a national youth guarantee backed by 560 million investment. To date, 160 million of the grants has been approved, 90 million in March 2023 and then 70 million in August 2023, which was to build, renovate and expand youth provision in 44 youth centres by councils across the country. This is now closed and this council has missed the opportunity. In September 2023, the government announced 800,000 funding to train 500 youth workers who will have their course fees paid from the government for bursaries for level 2, 3 and 4 youth workers. As part of the improvement process, 200,000 will also be allocated for local authorities to peer review each other youth offers. The Youth Investment Fund Phase 3, our MP, has raised a question in government at the Parliament, a written question at the Parliament as to when Phase 3 will be available. There's lots of money left, millions of money left to get this building renovated, keep it for the villagers of Eye, and also to get Senior Youth Club started again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd now like to call upon Councillor Howard as the Cabinet Member. You now have the opportunity to propose a motion on the action you're proposing that the Council should take. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. McKean. The Council acknowledges the petition from Mr. McKean and proposed that the petition is referred to the February Cabinet meeting when the next steps in respect of the Eye Community Centre and Library will be considered, and Cabinet will be able to take into account the petition and the comments made by members this evening as part of the consideration of the next steps. This will be in line with the work that is being done on the asset review. In the meantime, the communities and property teams and myself as the Cabinet Member responsible will continue with the high level of engagement with Mr. Keane that we have begun to discuss the site and ensure when a decision is made it is suitable for the Eye community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So the proposition on the table is that the item be referred to the February meeting of the Cabinet. Is there a seconder? Councillor Farouk, I understand you wish to second it.
Happy to second it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And reserve my right to speak.
Okay, thank you. So, can I just ask any other members wish to speak? We've got Councillor Allen, we've got Councillor John Fox. Anybody else? And Councillor Ray. I don't think Councillor Howard can speak again, can you? No. Hogg, yeah. Wiggin. Okay, that's fine. So I'd like to call Councillor Allen first then. Thank you. So you've got 3 minutes, isn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. Dan McKean is passionate about the youth club, and he, with his wife, runs a very, very successful facility there. And it's good to see the support from residents and users who were greeting us as we came into the meeting this evening. As your ward councillors, we are acutely aware of the concerns of the City Council's localities and assets review is causing. Whilst we do believe it's essential for the Council to review its property estates and assets from time to time, clearly when valued local facilities are threatened, this generates concern in the affected communities. A case in point is where the building which hosts the library, the guides, the brownies and the youth club is under threat of disposal. The old school, a historic building in the conservation area, has Article 4 protection and has been used as a youth centre and library for 61 years. There are, of course, locations in the city which have community buildings that can be better utilised, repurposed or see facilities combined. But in a village or rural location, this is not always possible. We are very much behind the campaign to see continue to have a viable youth club facility. This is a growing community, and the provision of the youth club and a functioning library is essential, and it must be recognised with the principle of community needs taken as a mantra when the review is conducted and is being considered. The village is growing, as we know, with a further development of 265 dwellings imminent. It beggars belief that a youth facility and the library is threatened. Importantly, I would ask the administration to ensure the relevant officers put in a full shift and ensure that valuable government funding for youth provisioning noted in the petition's presentation is applied for and secured without further delay. We cannot allow to again draw the short straw when these kinds of decisions are taken. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. The next speaker is Councillor John Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to say that I can understand fully why the residents of have supported this motion, or this petition, I should say. As a village bobby at for 15 years, I worked very closely with the youth centre and those people, as Dale knows, that work there. In fact, I actually formed a volleyball team, which was very successful. My own grandchildren, my own daughters, get it right in a minute, my own daughters went to that facility and got great pleasure from it. And I do believe that we have to find the best solution for this. I've spoken to Councillor Farouk and I am confident that he will find a solution, because there needs to be one, because, as you said, the village is growing and growing and growing, and we need to have facilities for the people there.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Call upon Councillor Ryland Ray.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It will come as no surprise that I'm supportive of this petition, and I'm indeed one of the signatories on it. I'm also supportive of the proposal to refer this to Cabinet to be looked at, although I would have preferred a proposal for us to agree tonight to protect this much valued and highly utilised provision within the village. Fellow opposition councillors and the Lib Dems may point out this was first placed on the disposal list during the Conservative group's administration, but Councillor Allen, Councillor Simons and myself have always been strong advocates for more provision for the residents of Ithorny and Newborough. This instance is no different. We are strong advocates for the village and feel that it needs more provision as it continues to grow. That's not just in youth provisions, but in other matters as well. And it's something that we'll continue to push for on behalf of all of the residents and with Mr. McKean's support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Just to clarify, it's not actually possible for the Council to make a decision because it's an executive decision that can only be made by the Cabinet. So now call upon Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So normally at this point, I'd probably be standing up and asking for an amendment so that it would go to scrutiny, but this item is already going to scrutiny. I'm more than happy for it to go to Cabinet, because that's ultimately where it needs to end up. I'll just also state that my grandson lives in along with my daughter, obviously. So I have got some skin in the game here. It's really important. regardless of where it is in the city, that good community services are available to all residents. So I'm a strong proponent of making sure that provision is protected. Less so the buildings, more about the provision itself, I have to say. But I do have to ask myself, you know, in July of this year, this item, this building, went onto the disposals list and was approved by the previous Conservative cabinet. Where were the three councillors for that ward in July of this year? All three of whom were cabinet members. Where were they? Where were they?
Councillor Allen, what's the point are you raising? So?
I'd like to raise a point of accuracy.
Point of accuracy, go on, Kevin.
The list that was produced was for consideration, to consider disposals and other options. It wasn't a given. So that is politicking, Councillor Hogg, and it's not acceptable.
Okay, Councillor Hogg.
So, but the point being is that it was put in...
Sorry, we've got a...
Thank you. A point of accuracy, Mr Mayor. I was a Cabinet Advisor, firstly, and as I mentioned in my statement, as I've already said, myself, Councillor Allen and Councillor Simons have always been advocates of this, and there were many conversations about protecting provisions within I throughout our terms in office, whether that's as councillors, Cabinet members or Cabinet Advisors.
We won't get pedantic. Okay, Councillor Hogg.
But the point is that in July they knew that this building was under threat, and yet it took an article in the Peterborough Telegraph before the residents were able to scurry together and start to protect this much-loved community asset. So you do have to ask yourself, where were they?
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. May I move to Councillor Chris Wiggin?
What was that?
I didn't hear anything, Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Hogg has already outlined that our group will be supporting the motion from Councillor Howard. I just wanted to make the point that, as Councillor Hogg also mentioned, that the Growth Resources and Community Scrutiny Committee will be reviewing next week the Localities Asset Review. Of course, this community centre will be part of that. I thank Mr McKean for bringing the petition to Council. The number of signatures on it clearly show the strength of feeling in the area. Councillor Steve Hallen has made an impassioned speech about it as well, and I'm sure he will do the same next week as a member of the committee. We will also have representatives from parish councils on that committee as well. So as chair of the committee, I will ensure that any comments that further come from members of the committee are put forward in our recommendations to Cabinet to be considered along with the petition. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's all very interesting, all the politicking, but, you know, let's be perfectly clear. As you all know, I'm the chairman of a community association in Peterborough, and I believe it's quite a successful one. And I'm also a councillor in a ward where we don't have any proper youth provision, and my fellow councillors will know that. And I think it's an absolute travesty that when people say to me, oh, look at what's happening in our ward, the kids doing this and the kids doing that, and when they're doing this, and why? Because it's got nothing to do. And you can't expect, you know, as much as we all want to be good parents, and I'm certain everybody in this room that's got children want to be a good parent, you can't be a parent 24 hours a day without finding something for your children to do. And it's not happening in many wards, and I think it's absolutely diabolical that we're even considering doing something in I to close down the community centre and the library. And certainly, if there was an alternative that was going to provide an even better facility and better service, then fine. But if we're going to close it down, it's going to disappear. It's wrong. And, you know, I would like to point out to Councillor Hogg that, as far as I'm aware, one of the first things that the new administration did was agree the community review, which even put our community centre at risk. And everybody here that's involved in community centres, your community centres are at risk. Have I heard anybody shouting from the coalition? No. So don't just shout at us. When you think you've got something to say, if it applies to all of us, get up and say it. Anyway, have I run out of time, Mr. Mayor?
No, you've still got 1 minute
Right,
remaining.
well, may I finish then, please? I'll get up and dance on the table, sir, Mr. Mayor. You know, community assets are really, really, really important. And I would plead to all of you to look very, very, very carefully before you agree to any of your community assets being closed down, as done by the first thing that this new administration did, and they agreed the asset review. And they're hiding everything behind the word review. Believe me, when people are reviewing stuff, it means they want to do stuff. You don't review stuff and not do anything. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to check the people on the list. I've got Councillor Alsey and Councillor Jamil. Is there someone else? Councillor Fitzgerald, sorry. So I think if we take Councillor Fitzgerald next, then thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the risk of being political, what a load of hogwash, as usual. So he spouts up when it suits him, and as do others. So let me be clear. I am not saying there isn't a need for a review. It's good, prudent behaviour of the administration. But be clear, this review is being led by officers. But with responsibility or power comes responsibility. But the current administration are basically, as I said before, conservative light. They've just carried on, and you lot haven't woken up to that yet. So the fact is they will carry on with the same policies, the same decisions. Mr McKean, I know well, former councillor as well, is doing an excellent job, and he's quite right. But I'll lay you a pound to a penny, unless they reverse the decision to keep yours open to get that man elected over there in Ithorny and Newborough. That's the only reason why they'll do it, is so that they'll try and scupper the Conservatives. We know what's going on, but trust me, they will close all those community centres without batting an eyelid. I'll tell you why. Because Mr Gladstone and Miss Booth and all the other people that are responsible for the budget...
So Councillor Howard's got a point. What sort of point is it?
Councillor Fitzgerald, your accusations...
Councillor Howard, can you tell me what type of point you're raising?
It's a point of accuracy.
Right.
Councillor Fitzgerald, you are totally out of order to say closure when we are saying review. Please amend your record.
Okay. All right. Let me be...
Just a minute. You need to... You don't talk directly to him. You talk to me. Okay.
Well done. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you. So look, let me be perfectly clear to Dale and anybody else watching, people in the gallery, that they are now in charge. So they can stop this tomorrow. But that means they'll have to go against the officers and the budget recommendations in order to do so. So the people in charge of this council, the cabinet, sat behind us, the squatters, they can actually stop this review tomorrow. So be clear about this, people in this chamber.
So Wigan has a point.
Oh, not again.
What type of point?
Can I just have a statement of accuracy, Mr Mayor? I'm reading the report to the Growth, Resources and Community Committee next week. It says, our youth centre and library, recommendation to Cabinet, further work needed before a final recommendation can be presented. So it is not true to say that a decision has been made to close the centre. As he says, it's still under review, but there is no decision from any officers at present to close the centre. He is right that it's under consideration for review,
that's your point.
but there is no recommendation to close at the moment.
Councillor Fitzgerald, you wish to continue?
That may be true. That's not what I said. You're not listening, as usual. If they want to close it, they will close it. And they'll close all the others. But what I'm telling you, the Cabinet could stop this tomorrow. Now, the officers will be upset about that. But please don't, well, it was started under the Conservatives. So what? Councillor Allen, Councillor Ray, Councillor Simons were very adamant about the I situation. And bearing in mind, your favourite word, Mr Mayor, it's all done in secret. Wasn't it? Because you know that. It was all done in secret. Nobody was allowed to see the list, because it was all in secret. Now that list has come out, and there's more stuff to come. Did you not read the budget papers? And even they were talking about difficult decisions. Been there, done all that, got the T-shirt. With power comes responsibility. And decisions will have to be made about saving money. Does anybody know there is a £3 million bill associated with those community centres just to keep the water from coming in? That is the problem. The Conservatives will fight tooth and nail for those that are fully behind their communities. Let's not, sorry, is there some kind of affliction? Yeah, well,
Sorry,
put your name on the ballot sheet,
please
mate.
not interrupt. Sorry, could you be quiet,
you,
please?
Mayor.
Carry
So
on. I'll give you a few seconds.
I've only got a few seconds left. So, Mr Bristow is wholly behind Mr McKean and the I community and will do what he can, and so will we. We don't play politics. It seems the opposition do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Now move to Councillor Elsey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Elsey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I've got half.
Frankly, I've never heard such claptrap in all my life.
He wonders why people left.
Carry on, Councillor.
In terms of Councillor Fitzgerald's comments about how we can stop it tomorrow, he seems to forget that whilst he was part of the administration, the leader of the administration, he could have prevented the list being produced in the first place. So he didn't. So there again, he's trying to pass the buck. In terms of Councillor Seresti standing up, if we've got something to say, I've got something to say because I represent a ward which has scant provision for any youths of any age in Wittering. So I completely sympathise with the situation that Dale McKean is in, and I have the utmost respect for him and his wife for the provision that they provide youths within I. This is a terrible situation. It isn't one of our making, but it is one we've inherited and one that we've got to deal with. This list, I was told by Steve Allen that we've made a decision. We haven't made a decision. He made the point of saying that the list was for review. It still is. So stop pretending that we've made a decision and that because you're no longer part of the administration that a decision has already been made. It hasn't. I haven't finished yet.
It was just a pause for effect, was it? Okay.
The whole reason that this list has arrived in the first place, and they're suggesting that they're not playing political games, is because Conservative Central Office and Conservative Central Government have insisted that local authorities have to go through their assets and have to go through their reserves before they can apply for any assistance should they find themselves in financial dire need, which virtually every administration in the country are. So,
Councillor Seresti has a point. What
point of accuracy? They didn't. The government didn't say Conservative councils or administrations. They said everybody in every council and every administration in this country needs to do that before they're going to give anybody any money.
Thank you. We're grateful for that clarity. Carry on.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, but with the greatest of respect, Mr Seresti, I didn't say Conservative, I said all administrations. So, open your ears.
Can I ask all members to address remarks through the chair and not talk directly at each other, because that makes it too confrontational? So could you carry on, Councillor?
Thank you. The last comment I would make is that I have the utmost sympathy for the residents of I. As I say, I represent a ward who's in a very similar situation, and I completely sympathise with the situation. In terms of Councillor Fitzgerald, all I would say is don't judge all of us by your own low standards. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Right, just to check the ones we've got on the list now, we've got Councillor Jamil, Councillor Harper, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Coles and Thorburn. Yeah, okay. Right, so we now call Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you very much. Dale, I commend the work you do. I think it's really important that this centre stays open. I know because in my ward, previously which was Central and then later on North Ward, we had 3 youth centres. There was one at Gladstone Park, one at the Iqbal Centre, one at Beachy School. And guess what? Which administration closed all of them? No prizes in guessing, yeah? So my advice to you is do everything you can to keep them open, because once they're gone, you're never getting them back, yeah? And that's the lesson we've got to learn, because we had organised activities for youth. Those youth now stand around and cause police so much trouble. And Councillor Seresti talked about community centres. My community centre, Gladstone Park, is another one that's under threat. But you ask the councillors here, no one's bothered from the council to consult them. I don't know whether that's on purpose. We fought two years ago when they tried to close, we fought tooth and nail to try and keep it open, yet this administration, the previous administration, were trying to do things behind our back, and in order to try and get that taken out of the community's hands. So Dale, I wish you the best of luck. And you know, you need to keep that open, because once it's gone, you ain't getting it back. And those youth are going to end up on the street, and that is nothing compared to what it is like now.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Now call Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, perhaps you could announce my disgust at what I'm hearing tonight. Well, the word's hypocritical. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I have in here, and I'm sure any member of the public that's watching in the gallery, particularly those in Iron Thorney, should visit the 10th of July 2023 Cabinet report, where you'll find that Cabinet resolved to approve the revised disposal plan. On that list, which you'll find in there, are the iYouth and Centre and Library, as we're talking about tonight, but also they must remember Thorney Community Centre and Thorney Library. I understand that the then leader and deputy were actually absent from this meeting and gave their apologies. But two of the actual ward councillors were present, one as a cabinet member, one as an advisor, and the cabinet of the day agreed that disposal plan. Dale, I take my hat off to you for all the fine work you're doing there, and I wish you well, and we will do all we can to look and make sure we make the right and fair decision for the city and, of course, for I. But what I do hope is that 1,500 signatories that are sitting on your petition, indeed all residents of Iron Thorney, will remember what happened on the 10th of the 7th, 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. I now call upon Councillor Bow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's have some positive discussion now. I will address you, just wait, give me a second. The petitioner has presented a very credible case, Credit to you, not the advocates. Credit to you, not the advocates. The legible signatures are in the region of 1,517, which is a very significant amount, and holds water and deserves proper attention. Proper attention. What is the issue? What is the issue? The administration have agreed that the petition will come before Cabinet in February. What more do you want? They've agreed. Now, may I suggest, my friends on this side, the more you speak, the more this case is going to get weakened. So I just suggest that you just avoid speaking and let the administration deal with it and come to a solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Iqbal. Now call upon Councillor Katie Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I want to say well done on your petition and just point out that I'm actually really pleased to hear my Conservative colleagues talking about the welfare and the education provision for children aged 0 to 16 and beyond, because a little while ago there were things called Sure Start centres. Sure Start centres catered for children from the age of 0 to maybe up to 25. Every community in Peterborough, from Bretton to Warrington to the Welland to Dogsthorpe to Gunthorpe to Paston, had community centres. And Gladstone, I used to work for them when I was at university. Now, there are none. And in recent months, there have been the introduction of the family hubs through third-party investment. Peterborough used to be proud of its Sure Start centres. And under the last 13 years of Tory government, 23 years of Tory administration in Peterborough, where are they?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Coles. I now call upon Councillor Fulburn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you. I'm actually, was going to keep the trap shut actually, but I've decided to say something. This property review that has been going on is a cultural change on how things are going to happen in this council. And every single person in this hall right now have not properly engaged in it. The guy sitting behind me is putting petitions together because we haven't engaged in the property review. All we've done is pointed fingers at each other. This is a fundamental change to how the officers want to engage with us, and we have an opportunity to do good things. A review goes both ways. It can be extremely positive and it can go negative as well, but it's going to be done in a certain way, which I applaud the team for doing that. So I'm having a little moan at everybody. Get engaged in this, and this guy wouldn't have to turn up here because it will be absolutely apparent through the evidence that he's now producing that you can actually keep these things open. And another little moan, south of the river, there's not a youth club left. And so one thing that was really interesting tonight, there's some statute out there that said there's money available. Why haven't we gone after it? Why haven't we gone after it? And I want to know why. That's the question now. But the reason I'm speaking is that all of us should be engaged in this property review, not sitting there pointing fingers at each other. People matter. So not political, just a moan from me. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thorburn. And we now, if there's not any other speakers, I'll then go back to Councillor Mohammed Farouk, who's reserved his right to speak. So you've got time.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't have much to say on it. Dale, it was a pleasure meeting you, and you know, we will do everything best to our ability to deliver best outcome for those residents. But we cannot move away from the reality that this disposal list came into July, as my colleague said, came into July's cabinet, where Councillor Allen even just now said we considered it. We considered disposing it. So it's in black and white. When our administration came in, we said we're going to be transparent and compassionate, and we will be both of those when we try to deliver best outcome for your residents, and we'll work with you continuously. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the concluding speeches. Councillor Howard, as Cabinet Member, you have right to reply, can speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you, and through you, Mr Mayor. You know, we've heard the factual business tonight that it was approved to put on the disposal list at the Cabinet on the 10th of July under the Conservative administration. The administration let down the eye community because they didn't flag that to their own MP until late October, early November, when he started his campaign. There was a massive gap between that campaign starting and the decision on the 10th of April, which if they thought was such a bad decision, why on earth didn't they flag it to their MP and get a petition out sooner? I don't think they can trust themselves, and I don't think their MP can trust them by the fact that he wasn't alerted to this ward issue that they created themselves any sooner. But moving on from that, you know, we've took this administration on 12 weeks ago nearly, and we have slowed the process down. We have got community teams, property teams, myself as a Cabinet Member attending these sites, and I absolutely adore the sentiment that Dale and the passion that Dale has brought to the area. We've seen that in many spaces across the city. And you can be assured that we are looking at this review with really open eyes, with an absolute determination to get the best possible outcomes out of it. And you have my word on that. And that's why I really want to take this petition to the Cabinet. It's a new look Cabinet, doing things in a new look way. And we will look after you, I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to call upon Mr McKean as the lead petitioner. You've also got up to 3 minutes if you any responses you want to make.
One of those. I think that's it. Bear with me, it's a bit emotional. It's been a long 2 months. This has been iVillagers campaign, myself and my good lady. And I thank our MP because he agreed to call a public meeting, and that helped us a bit. In fact, it helped us quite a lot. We got officers attending, and that really started to launch some of the things off that I've been mentioning tonight. So I thank him for that. It's not his campaign, it's a villagers' campaign, myself and Lillian driving it. There's been and I thank the leader and the deputy leader and the officers of the assets, because there's been very good engagement, especially with the states as well recently. And as I say, all of them have been very good in engagement. However, the grant side has been negligible. I've had to chase to talk and get an email name for the grant people in communities and put across and send to them all of these government links to these grants and put this case and the financial information together. They've missed loads of opportunities, and there are more still, and hopefully with the question to Parliament there'll be a third phase as well, because there's lots of money left. So there's a big gap in terms of community. It's been mentioned about ASB. We have got ASB. We know it's increased since we lost our senior youth club 5 years ago. We need somewhere for these 12-year-olds to go on to once they've come out of the kind care. That junior youth club do. The scrutiny is a very limited status. And that's going to go to Cabinet. I can't see that Cabinet can make any decisions on the scrutiny. It says, review ongoing and assessing impact underway, possible for investment in Manor Farm Community Centre, enhance capacity, enable services to relocate within the village. Feasibility work ongoing, property lies within a conservation area, and there may be a restrictive covenant on use. Ongoing engagement with DCMS, which I think is a library. So I can't see Cabinet making a decision on that recommendation that's going to scrutiny next week. Somebody said once gone, they're gone. And that's really important. It doesn't matter about the politics in this room, it matters about the kids. I have one last paragraph. I missed this out because of time earlier on. On one of the coldest nights this year, that's mine.
It is now.
On one of the coldest nights this year, the attendance last Friday was 62 in the Junior Youth Club. There are a number of dedicated volunteers. Some previously attended youth club. Many in the village that attended years ago now bring their children and even their grandchildren to your junior youth club. Thank you.
Well done, Dale. Well done.
Thank you. We now move to take a vote on the proposition that Councillor Howard has put forward, which is to refer the item to the February meeting of the Cabinet. Is that agreed? Or thank you. Okay. Right. I now propose we take a quarter of an hour break. Unfortunately, the clock's a bit slow. On my watch, it's actually 7:56. So I propose that we come back at 10 past. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. If you'd all like to take your seats, please. Cushions. Okay, yeah. Right, Councillor, so we've concluded item 9. So we now move to item 10, executive and committee recommendations to council. We don't have any items to consider. So we can now move to item 11. Sorry?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, are you saying there's been no business? There's been no business?
There's been no recommendations either the Cabinet or the committee has put forward that needs to be approved by council.
That's fine, I was just checking what's been going on, not a lot.
Okay. Right.
Not a lot going on then? No, okay.
You might say that, I couldn't possibly comment. Just going to get to the relevant page and then we'll continue. Where is the bloody... Right, okay, so there's some confusion with the numbering of the pages. We now move to item number 11, which is in relation to the record of executive decisions. These are detailed on page 57 to 62 of your agenda. As we normally do with this, the leader will introduce the item, and any questions will be answered by the leader unless he refers them to another member. I would remind councillors that they should ask questions on the decisions in the reports. All questions should be relevant to the actual decision. Should I feel that any preamble is unreasonably long, I will intervene and instruct councillors to ask their question. So, can members please note, once I've moved on from you won't be able to go back and ask questions on previous pages. So, Councillor Mohammed Farouk, would you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, consider it as read and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now take each page in turn. And could members please refer to the title or reference number of the decision when they're asking a question? So we take page 57 first. No questions on page 57. So we move to page 58. No questions on page 58. So we move to page 59. Councillor Hogg.
Just about the termination of contract decision. Where it doesn't really state what it's about. I can probably guess what it's about. I was just wondering if it could be confirmed if that it's now in the public domain, and what decision that was in fact terminated.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk, who's going to answer that one? Councillor Howard.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, the decision was sort of provisionally set up, but in the end wasn't required because we managed to come to an arrangement with Serco without needing the termination. So that's the reason it was there, because it was a sort of preliminary decision that wasn't necessary to be made in the end.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Hogg? Is that okay?
Yes, I mean, that's fine. Well, we've already spoken about it in the meeting, and I'll take this opportunity to thank all those concerned in getting it to a swift conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. So nothing else on page 59. We move on to page number 60. No questions on page 60. And then finally page 61. Okay. So, yes, Councillor Hemmerich, sorry.
Just on the compensation for upheld complaint on housing needs, has our systems changed to prevent that this doesn't happen again? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk, who's going to answer that one?
Councillor Hiller.
Councillor Hiller.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Farouk. Thank you, Mr Mayor. And Councillor Hemraj. Yes, the systems have changed. It was a bit of a catalogue. I can't go into detail patently, but it was a catalogue of error which has been resolved, fortunately, and the systems have been changed to ensure as much as we can that this doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. So any more questions on page 61? I've got page 62, but that's blank, so I don't think there are any questions on that one. So that concludes that particular item. We then move to agenda item 12, questions on the combined authority decisions made since the last meeting. There have been no relevant meetings of the combined authority, so there is nothing to consider under item 12. So we now move to item 13, which is a notice of motion. Only one motion has been received from Councillor Rangzeb. Councillor Rangzeb, would you like to move your motion as set out in the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will want to move my motion. It's about the ceasefire. This motion is about the ongoing war in the Middle East, namely Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. Since 7th of October, there has been a huge loss of life and destruction at an unprecedented level. The Council notes the Hamas attack on 7th of October inside State of Israel, resulting in deaths of 1,200 Israeli citizens and abduction of 240 hostages, including children, in contravention of Geneva Convention. Since that attack, the Israeli forces have dropped more than 29,000 bombs to date on Gaza, which is one of the world's most densely populated place, home to 2.3 million trapped Palestinians. To date, more than 25,000 Palestinians are killed. Amongst the killed, two-thirds are women and children. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Human Affairs states at least 60% of homes or housing units in Gaza have been destroyed or damaged. 9 in every 10 schools have suffered significant damage. 13 out of 36 hospitals in Gaza are partially functioning, 2 minimally functioning, and 21 hospitals are not functioning at all, according to World Health Organization. This level of death and destruction is collective punishment, which is against the international law under the Geneva Convention. There are examples of violation on both sides. The continuation of indiscriminate missile fired by Hamas is an example of collective punishment, and the government of Israel is responsible of these crimes more than anyone else. The government of Israel has illegally blockaded Gaza for 16 years. Since 7th of October, they have cut off water, food, and electricity. The Israeli Defense Force is continuously bombing Gaza using 2,000-pound bombs. Dropping such bombs in a densely populated area means that no one could survive within 500-meter radius of that point of impact. Consider this in context of Gaza, which is a small strip of land, mostly densely populated and completely blockaded from the land and the sea. Nothing can get in or out of Gaza without the Israeli supervision or consent. This is a real example of collective punishment, if not genocide, taking place right now in front of our eyes. Seeing these horrific images and the violence, the residents of Peterborough are rightly appalled by the huge escalation of violence, deaths and destruction, both in Israel and occupied Palestinian territories. Since the start of this war, many residents have approached their elected representatives to seek their official response, calling for an immediate ceasefire and a negotiated release of those unjustly held hostages or prisoners. I appreciate the fact that the Peterborough MP Paul Bristow has already called for a ceasefire against the government policy and lost his job. However, this motion is seeking a collective voice of peace and life. Enough of the death and destruction. This council is asking to those in position of power to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. The motion is asking council to agree to request the council leader to write to both Peterborough MPs, strongly urging them to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Write to the Foreign Secretary, asking him to work to ensure full access for humanitarian aid is granted in Gaza. Seek an immediate, unconditional release of hostages. Call for those arrested from the West Bank since 7th of October 2023 to be given an opportunity to a fair and transparent trial. Raise concern about the Israeli army and settler violence in West Bank. I commend the motion to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Rangzeb. I'd now like to call upon Councillor Nicola Day, who's going to second the motion. I'd like to ask you, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak for later?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am seconding the motion and I'd like to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Can I have indications of anybody else who likes to speak? Councillor Iqbal? Anybody else? Councillor Suresti? Councillor Over? Anyone else? Councillor Allen? Councillor Steve Allen? Councillor Hussain? Councillor Hogg? Anybody else? You can put your hand up later on, but just get an initial indication. Thank you. So we now move to Councillor Iqbal then.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No man is an island. We are all connected to family, to our neighbours, to members of our community. That is why what happens in one part of the world matters to us all. And it is why so many of us in Peterborough and in the UK are angry and feel the pain of what is happening in Israel and Gaza now. From this side of the chamber, Peterborough Labour condemns the ongoing attacks on innocent civilians in Gaza and support calls for an immediate ceasefire. Our leader, Councillor Dennis Jones, made our support for a ceasefire clear at the last council meeting when he moved a minute's silence for the victims of October 7th and subsequent bombing of Gaza. Today, as then, we need to bring our communities together to end the violence and bring about a peaceful solution. It is heartbreaking to see so many men, women, and children affected. So, let me say clearly, Labour utterly condemns Hamas's appalling and ongoing attacks on Israel. We call for the release of all remaining hostages. We also condemn the ongoing attacks on innocent civilians in Gaza. We need an immediate ceasefire and the opening of more roads to allowing humanitarian aid, food, water, and medical supplies to Gaza. All governments must act in line with international law. But we must also go further. There will be no lasting peace in Palestine until settler violence is also tackled in the West Bank, and that human rights for Palestinians are respected. We need the leadership of all parties to do more. The latest violence started on 7th October, but all know that this injustice for Palestine has much deeper roots. We need the British government to use all of its diplomatic, legal, and political influence to get justice for Palestine and security for Israel, including an independent sovereign state for Palestine. We need financial support, not just for aid, but to rebuild Gaza as a home for Palestine once again. I also want to put tribute to members of the local community in community together to support peace and provide practical help for those suffering. The author of the petition has mentioned Paul Bristow. Put politics aside. Yes, we accept that he called for a ceasefire, but when it came to a vote in the House of Commons, he abstained. I just want to make a note of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Iqbal. Almost precisely on time. That was really good. Councillor Marcos Suresti.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. very, 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 very difficult subject this evening. I'm sure that every one of us who's a reasonable human being has got to accept that killing people, children, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever side of the conflict, it's wrong. So I'm going to support this motion. But what I would like, if possible, I'd like a minor amendment. And so, if, with your permission, I'd like to put forward a minor amendment. All I would like to do is, in part 2 of the actual motion, it says to seek the immediate, unconditional release of all hostages. And I would like that added to part 1, and I would be perfectly happy with that. And hopefully this awful thing that's happening over there will soon stop. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Could I just check with the legal officer what the situation is regarding moving amendments on the...
Can I just ask for clarity, first of all, Councillor Seresti, in terms of the proposed change that you're putting forward, just so that I'm clear? Can you just clarify? Sorry.
Look at the second part of the motion, line 2, seek an immediate, unconditional release of all hostages. And that is a letter to the Foreign Secretary asking him to do that. Personally, and this is personally, I would be much happy with it if it said write to both MPs demanding that they call for an immediate permanent ceasefire and seek an immediate unconditional release of all hostages.
So that it's removed in its entirety from the letter to the Foreign Secretary and just includes it in the correspondence to the Peterborough MPs?
We could put it,
or do you want it in both?
To write to both MPs strongly urging them to call for an immediate permanent ceasefire and then the other part.
So it's in both elements, in both. Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify. So are you proposing that as an amendment
I would
to
like
the motion?
to do so,
okay.
if the Mayor accepts.
Yeah, so do I have to ask the mover if he's prepared to accept it? Or?
No, so he can. Sorry, let me take this off.
Right, so I'm advised that that's an acceptable amendment that you can put forward. I need to ask, do you have a seconder for it? Councillor Coles, yeah. Okay, so we now go into the procedure for amendments. Councillor Coles, would you like to speak now or would you like to reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second this particular amendment. It's a very minor one. It's simply just adding a little bit to the request to the MPs. I don't think it's particularly contentious. I don't intend to speak any further on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just to make it easier, could I just ask Councillor Brown's there, but would you be prepared to accept the minor change that Councillor Seresti is putting forward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't see a point. I mean, who is dealing with the... obviously, is the Foreign Secretary, is his duty and responsibility to talk to the external parties and especially the international community on that.
I don't need you to make a speech on it. I just need you to tell me, do you accept the amendment Councillor Seresti's put forward?
I don't.
Not. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So we now proceed with the debate, and we are debating the amendment from Councillor Seresti at the same time as the main motion. Councillor Seresti, do you...
Mr. Mayor, to save a lot of time, I'm quite happy to withdraw it if that's not the case. Thank
that
you.
would be helpful. I think it would introduce a bit of confusion. So the amendment is withdrawn. We proceed to debate the main motion, and the next speaker I have is Councillor Over.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't take long on this, but nearly 30 years ago, I came to this chamber as the future. I am now about to leave it as the past. I'm that generation who knew about Belsen and indeed knew men, a father, uncles and neighbours who opened the gates there. When in Jerusalem, my driver lived in Jaffa, was Palestinian and Christian. I couldn't understand it. I saw him in Ramallah, white 4x4s, from a range of organisations that are meant to be helping, but are partying on a Friday night. I simply don't understand. I can't vote for or against a motion that, quite simply, having been to Israel and the West Bank, I just don't understand.
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Rover. We now move to Councillor Steve Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's incredibly sad and heartbreaking to witness the mounting devastation and unbelievable amount of casualties as a result of this conflict. I'm sure we all have immense sympathy with all of those affected by the terrorist actions and the slaughter of innocent festival goers on the 5th of October, and indeed the summary retribution that has resulted. The decades-long challenge of resolving the relationship between Israel, Palestine, and the issues of the Gaza Strip, Hamas control, and the expansion of illegal settlements are a complex issue, and I believe way beyond the remit of this chamber or this authority. I'm sure this motion has been put before us with the best intentions, but however well-meaning, I cannot see the worth of letters from this chamber or the City Council, or indeed there being any impact on the situation which will be achieved by this motion. The Middle East is a tinderbox, and our tiny voice will have no impact on the geopolitical matters of this nature. A solution to the issues is far from sight, and in reality it lies with the immediate players to resolve this latest eruption of decades-old conflict. Of course, the motion has value from a humanitarian perspective. I have a lot of sympathy and a great deal of respect for Councillor Aurangzeb and the sentiments he's expressed. However, because of what I feel is an issue beyond our reach, I will deal with my reservations by abstaining on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Now call upon Councillor Hussain to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank Councillor Aurangzeb for bringing forward this motion. We have to recognise that a vote in our council chamber won't save or affect the lives of Palestinians or Israelis. Nonetheless, it allows us to show our solidarity and concern for the plight of all the people in the region and highlight the issue that means so much to so many people in Peterborough. This is one of the biggest humanitarian crises of our time, an issue that has been boiling on the world stage for over 75 years. Much has been said of Israel's right to defend itself. This is not a right to break international law or commit war crimes. Even saying Israel is at war with Gaza is factually incorrect, as Gaza is not a standalone entity. It is part of an occupied territory. Under international law, as stated by United Nations human rights lawyers, Israel cannot claim the right of self-defense against a threat that emanates from a territory it is effectively occupying. It can, however, act to establish law and order or to repel the attack. Instead, Israel has killed over 25,000 innocent civilians, many of those women and children. These figures, no doubt, will be much higher as the bodies under the rubble haven't been accounted for. Depriving a population that you are occupying, an occupying force over, from basic necessities like water, food, medical aid is a war crime under international law, and is the indiscriminate bombing of hospitals and schools as well. It breaks my heart to hear of the stories and horror unfolding in occupied Palestine. I, like others, get irritated by people letting off fireworks late at night in our city. They disturb our sleep, stress our pets. But spare a thought for those parents and children who sit in their homes hearing the barrage of rockets, the fizz of white phosphorus, the wandering whistles of rockets, whether it's going to collapse their apartment blocks. So many stories, parents writing their children's names on their limbs in case they're blown up so they can collect the body parts. And not bagged up in body bags, but in shopping bags. That's the harsh reality and the truth from Israel's actions. Yet we hear declarations that Israel has the right to defend itself. I wonder if those making these statements would have the same zeal if it was their finger on the trigger pointing the gun at a pregnant mother or a child. I do have a concern that this motion fails to address an issue that UK citizens going over to Israel and other war zones to take part in acts of violence, many of whom may return to the UK suffering with PTSD or may have been radicalised from their experience. Although I will be supporting the motion, I'm confused and disappointed by the wording, where they call for MP Paul Bristow to call for a ceasefire when he has clearly and publicly already done this on numerous occasions. Thank you.
Thank you. The final speaker I've got on the list is Councillor Hogg. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you very much to Councillor Ranzeb and Councillor Day, who have done a lot of work in the background, basically round-robin emails backwards and forwards, trying to hone down this motion so that it was the right wording, because it's a very sensitive subject. So they did a lot of work dealing with various different people to get the right wording. So I think that hard work should not go on unnoticed, or didn't go unnoticed, should I say. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group. We had a discussion on this motion, as we do with all motions, I don't think anybody can be failed to be touched by the suffering, and literally on a nightly basis on the news there is another story of another horrific incident that has caused death or at least hurt and harm to innocent civilians on both sides of the border, and so we will be supporting this wholeheartedly. The thing that we need to get a hold of is the fact that other countries, other forces, what have you, are feeding into this conflict with weapons and feeding in on this. You've got, you have to ask yourselves about the people that manufacture the weapons, and is this just a litmus test for them to be able to test their weapon systems? And the end result is that human lives are being lost because of it. It is abhorrent. It needs to stop. But it's not just about stopping it now, it's about stopping it for the future too. So we will be, as I said, our group will be supporting this motion.
Are you okay? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hogg. Now move to Councillor Wayne Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I initially wasn't going to speak on this, just to declare our group's position. They can vote as they like, which is a democratic thing. But the item got soiled for me by Councillor Iqbal when he decided to make it slightly personal and critical, and indeed political. So just let me deal with the negative aspects, because I've heard twice now about Paul Bristow MP. And let me be perfectly clear. Paul called for a ceasefire and lost his job as a PPS for doing so. The one step that he couldn't do, because then he would no longer be a Conservative MP for Peterborough, was vote against it on the basis of he would have lost the whip and the city would be in a worse off position by not having him championing. You can laugh about a very serious issue, folks, but I'm treating this very seriously. You really belittle a man that's trying to do his best, that cares the same as anybody else in this chamber about the real issues. But be clear, as I said earlier, with power comes responsibility. And I don't see Keir Starmer or any of the Labour Party calling for a ceasefire. So let's be clear, let's not politicise this issue. That's the point I'm trying to make. So on a more positive note, Mr. Mayor, I personally will be supporting this motion because I have a great deal of respect for my colleague, Councillor Rangzeb, and I sympathise with him and many people locally and internationally. This is indeed an appalling situation. As Councillor Allen says, though, I'm not quite sure, that we can influence this. We're not the UN, but if it adds some moral support to stopping the atrocities that's going on, and that can filter back through the MPs. But again, one of them is already on board. I don't know where Shailish is on it. I've not had a discussion with him, but I would imagine he also is equally appalled about the abhorrent atrocities that are going on in Gaza. Rather interestingly, I just Googled it, the latest position, I understand, and it's not meant as criticism, but it takes two to come together. And Hamas, I understand, rejected a ceasefire just days ago. So where do we go with this? If what we say, you know, taking your point, Steve, I'm happy to support it because I think it's a terrible situation. And I also want to support my colleague who's done a lot of work on this. Thanks also to Councillor Day for cooperating with Councillor Rangzeb on it. I won't take any more of the Council's time, Mr Mayor. Safe to say, our group will vote as they wish to vote, and I shall be supporting the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. On the list have got Councillor Ennis Jones and Councillor Jamil, so I call Councillor Jones, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In the best traditions of party leaders, group leaders, I wasn't going to speak. On this particular issue, I have, from what Councillor Allen said, is how much difference will it make is a moot point. We could be here all night. But what it is showing, and I'm not going to pretend this is a particularly well-worded motion, the Labour group is going to support it, but more to the point is we're sending out a message right across the chamber and right across the city that we are united in supporting this, in abhorring this violence. But please let us be clear about our MP's position on this, and I will say no more about it. If you know, you know, and too late was the cry. As a group, we've been calling for a ceasefire here in Peterborough since the second or third week. And, you know, we should have done this much earlier and much sooner. And maybe that collective voice, writing to our MPs and maybe the Foreign Secretary, might just have had a little chink a little sooner. So, you know, it is a welcome motion, albeit it is a little bit late in the day, but we are going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Now call Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm another one who wasn't actually going to speak, but I just feel there was a comment that Councillor Fitzgerald made, and he talked about the UN. And I think one thing that has come out of all this is how impotent an organisation that is when you need it. Because they've they've struggled to find a position. You've had 14 countries on one side and one country decides it doesn't want to do it. That in itself just proves that the organisation isn't fit for purpose anymore from where it was set up. And if you remember why it was set up after the Second World War, I think, you know, they're not doing justice to the Palestinian cause anymore. But going back to the motion itself, like my leader, Councillor Jones, has said, we're going to support this. And there isn't nothing here that I don't think most of us agree with, because we're calling for a permanent ceasefire. Now, people have eloquently explained the amount of people that have died. This is asking both sides to stop. It's to stop the madness that goes on daily. And I would urge everyone, even those who said I'm going to abstain, to go with this and send a message out that Peterborough City Council is asking for a permanent ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Can I just ask if there's any other speakers? Councillor Mohammed Farouk. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I refer to our council meeting on 1st of November, where my group leader, Councillor Harper, stood up and his statement was, "We are touched and heartbroken to see the conflict in the Middle East. We deeply regret the loss of lives on both sides, 1,400 Israelis and 8,500 Palestinians." Now, that's obviously changed to 25,000, and not to mention the destroyed infrastructure, houses, hospitals, and injured and displaced families. We ask all the international community to work together and bring an immediate ceasefire. Once ceasefire is in place, an international government in Gaza will ensure peace and would work together on the long-term two-state solution. So our group leader was the first one in this council to stand up and say that. Mr Mayor, no one ever wins a war. Diplomacy only wins a war. And I am fully supporting this motion. And as far as the voting in the Parliament is concerned, and writing a letter asking for ceasefire of a Peterborough MP, I can only sum that up with this saying, and that is, I hear what you're saying, but I see what you're doing, and seeing is believing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farouk. If there's no other speakers, I now call upon Councillor Nicola Day, who's reserved her right to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As we know, local residents have been quite rightly appalled by the escalation of violence and deaths in Israel and Palestine. It's time to chart a new path to peace, and that should begin with a ceasefire. We have worked hard with Councillor Rangzeb on this motion, and we thank him for bringing it to the Council. We've also worked with other group leaders and officers. Can I just thank everyone on their work in bringing this motion to Fulll Council? This motion agrees to write to the Foreign Secretary and both Peterborough MPs, strongly urging them to call for a ceasefire and asking the Foreign Secretary to ensure full access for humanitarian aid is granted in Gaza. The more letters the Foreign Secretary gets from councils asking for a ceasefire across the UK, the stronger the call will be for a ceasefire. This violence and bloodshed must not continue. And we must remember that this was not a conflict that began on October the 7th. It began 75 years ago when the UN adopted Resolution 181, known as the Partition Plan, which sought to divide the British Mandate of Palestine into Arab and Jewish states. On the 14th of May 1948, the State of Israel was created, sparking the first Arab-Israeli war. The horrors of October the 7th have been compounded by months of tragic devastation for the people of Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Many of us have seen these scenes unfolding in front of our eyes. The bombing of schools, hospitals and infrastructure, the death toll rising in the hundreds each day, and more than 1 million people being displaced. The blockade on Gaza has led to severe humanitarian aid shortages of food, medicine, sanitary items and fuel. As the motion states, this is collective punishment under international law. The Green Party believe the government must unequivocally call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza to allow the free flow of humanitarian aid, the freeing of hostages, and to create the space for dialogue. We will be adding this call as a council to other councils across the UK who have also called for a ceasefire. It is not only us calling for a ceasefire. Over 70% of the British public support a ceasefire. A ceasefire has also been called for by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, UNICEF, Save the Children, the head of the World Health Organization, and Oxfam. The Green Party believe the government should support the UN General Assembly in its overwhelming backing for a ceasefire and use its position as a permanent member of the UN Security Council to vote for rather than abstain on ceasefire votes. But we know that a ceasefire alone will not be the end of hostility between Israel and Palestine. The Green Party actually goes further than the motion, and this isn't in the motion, but we call for an end to the illegal occupation of Palestine and an end to arms sales to Israel. As the motion states, the British government must work with all relevant partners to establish a permanent, peaceful solution in Israel-Palestine.
Could you draw your remarks to a close?
Yeah. This is not a radical stance to take. This is a humanitarian one, and this can only begin by joining the many people and organisations calling for a ceasefire. Members, please support the call for a ceasefire and peace tonight in the Chamber.
Thank you very much. So that's the final speaker in the debate is Councillor Rangzeb, who's got up to 3 minutes to summate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't intend to take too much of a time. As I can see, most of the members are somewhat in favour. Most of them are in favour of this motion. However, obviously, there are some members who have said that there's not much that we can do. I am aware of that it is an international issue. It has been ongoing for ages, but it's a matter of voicing. This voice from Peterborough City Council should go out to our parliamentary MPs and to the Foreign Secretary, so that they could think that this is voices from the Peterborough seeking peace. That's what we are asking about. Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, I just don't understand that when you see those images of the children who have been denied the incubators, and then we just can't stay quiet, can we? And the beauty of this nation and this city is that whenever there is a calamity or there's an earthquake or there's a war in the international community, we always stand up and we raise up and help them. And that's what we can do. I mean, we can't go and get ourselves engaged in the war, but at least we can voice for peace and ceasefire, and that's what I'm asking for, and that's what I hope the members will vote for this motion instead of abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roundzeb. I'm not going to ask if it's agreed because a number of members have said that they wish to abstain for various issues of principle. So, sorry, Councillor Jamil.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote if that's possible, sir, if you'd like to.
There's a required number of people.
Yeah.
I think that satisfies the required number. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Right, so we're going to take a vote on this. It's going to be a recorded vote. So I hand over to Colin, who will conduct the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, members, you're now voting on the Peterborough ceasefire motion. When I call out your name, please indicate whether your vote is for or against the motion, or whether you wish to abstain. Councillor Ahmed?
For.
Councillor Jackie Allen? Councillor Steve Allen?
Abstain.
Councillor Asif? Councillor Ayres? Councillor Barkham?
For.
Councillor Bai?
For.
Councillor Bisbee?
For.
Councillor Andrew Bond? Councillor Sandra Bond?
For.
Councillor Casey?
Abstain.
Councillor Seresti? Councillor Cole?
For.
Councillor Coles?
Abstain.
Councillor Day?
For.
Councillor Dowson?
For.
Councillor Elsey?
For.
Councillor Mohammed Farouk?
For.
Councillor Saqib Farouk? Councillor Fitzgerald? Councillor Judy Fox?
For.
Councillor John Fox?
For.
Councillor Harper?
For.
Councillor Hasib? Councillor Hemraj?
For.
Councillor Hiller?
For.
Councillor Hogg?
For.
Councillor Howard?
For.
Councillor Hussain?
For.
Councillor Dennis Jones? Sorry, Councillor Jamil?
For.
Councillor Iqbal?
For.
Councillor Dennis Jones?
For.
Councillor Khan?
For.
Councillor Knight? Councillor Mahmood? Councillor Nawaz?
For.
Councillor Over? Councillor Perkins? Councillor Quayam?
For.
Councillor Rangzeb?
For.
Councillor Ray? Councillor Rush?
For.
Councillor Sabir?
For.
Councillor Sainsbury?
Abstain.
Mayor Sanford?
I'm for.
Councillor Shahid?
For.
Councillor Sharp? Councillor Simons? Councillor Skipstead?
For.
Councillor Strangwood?
For.
Councillor Thorburn? Councillor Warren?
For.
And Councillor Wiggin?
For.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the result of the vote is 44 in favour, none against and 9 abstentions. That is carried. Just for clarification, sorry, it was 44 for, none against, and 9 abstentions. Forgive the Scottish accent, sorry.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank members for a really good debate on what's obviously a really important issue. So we now move to agenda item 14, which is reports to council. Item 14A is a report by the monitoring officer on notification of changes to the leaders scheme of delegations, which are set out on pages 65 to 70. Councillor Farouk, would you like to move the recommendations?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Consider it read. It's just a one minor change in the grand scheme of things.
Thank you. Is that agreed then? Thank you. Thank you, yeah. Okay. Right, so we now move to 14B, which is the report on member appointments and updates to the Constitution, which appears in the agenda on pages 71 to 102. I understand Councillor Howard is going to propose the recommendations.
Thank you. For you, Mr. Mayor, happy to propose.
Thank you. And Councillor Farouk, I believe you're seconding the recommendations.
Happy to second it, Mr. Mayor.
Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak?
I reserve the right to speak.
Okay. Are there any other speakers, or is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And I think that concludes the proceedings. Can I remind councillors that we've put on some light refreshments in the Mayor's Parlour. All councillors here are invited, all officers, and I was going to say members of the public, but they've already gone. So thank you for... So that concludes the meeting. Thank you.